And we are live for another Biddle, the second time today on May 11th, Saturday. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Excellent. Thank you.
Awesome sauce.
Yeah.
Awesome sauce.
All right, so let's get a confirmation from chat that everything is sounding good, looking good, and being okay. Please.
Oh. And then the Ethernet.
Sounds pretty good to me live.
All right. Then we're good. All right. So if you missed the earlier Biddle Europe edition, you missed out. You have to go back and watch it because it was a great episode where we had some awesome discussion about Ubuntu MATE and all kinds of other stuff. And Martin was there, Martin Wimpress, to give us some details on some of our questions that we had, some of the issues we had. And it was an excellent... It was an excellent episode. So,
Say again?
we're going to try a double dose here. So, who wants to start out? Zeb, come on, start it out again.
Okay. I'm going to start it slightly differently this time by saying that Ubuntu MATE is just one of those distros that works. You install it. You don't even have to set it up. You can use it right out of the box, install all your applications, and boom, there you go. Everything is just working out of the box. Is it for me? Do I use it as my daily driver? No. Not because it doesn't work, just because it's just not for me. Ubuntu 19.04 which is what we're testing this week. I have just one problem with the tweak tool and the changing of the look and feel of the screens. And the only one that I can get to work with my weird monitor setup is the Mutiny version. Every other version has a problem scaling the wallpaper so that I get a full screen of wallpaper. Every other like theme on there just sits in the top right hand corner. The panel sits down here, and yet I've got all the rest of this screen that is just black. So I don't know what it is. Martin has said that he'll have a look at it for me, but hey, I've got this really weird setup. So if I put it on 1440 and just run it like normal people would, then it's perfectly okay. Installing stuff is okay. Snaps obviously work out of the box. You have to use the OBS snaps because NVENC is not there, and as we know, that's a downstream Debian stroke FFmpeg problem. But everything else is fine. And if somebody said to me, well, I need to put a distro on that just works, if I can't get my hands on a Peppermint ISO, then it will definitely be a MATE ISO that will be in the mix because, yeah, thumbs up, it just works.
That's so much better than next.
Yeah, well, it will never get a next. It had too much polish, too much work done to it.
It works too well to get a next. All right, so as we're going through this, if you have talked about Ubuntu MATE in the earlier thing and you don't feel like talking about it, you're more than welcome to skip it. But we would surely appreciate you chiming in your opinion a second time, and I don't think people will mind too much. So, Bash.
Yeah, so I've also seen that issue, like I mentioned on the earlier stream that Zeb is talking about, but I'm running a 1080p screen, so it's a little bit different. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but I did get to mess around with the layouts this afternoon, and it's a nice touch to have all these available from the start and just be able to quickly switch between those. That's pretty cool. And I've got it themed out and did some tweaks to the font to get all that set up. So I also ended up installing the currently working version of 1910 or something like that. So it's been an interesting afternoon. But yeah, it seems to run pretty well. It reboots really quick on my machine, which I like. I always like it if something boots up fast, if it reboots fast. So overall, I'm going to have to keep messing with it. But I mean, it seems like a really, really good choice for a lot of people, especially those that don't have the best hardware around. That is one thing I will say about Mint. Like, I feel like Cinnamon in particular is just not nearly as friendly with the older hardware as something like the MATE or XFCE or something like that.
So would it or could it replace Cinnamon for you?
I don't know, because I just don't know ultimately where it's gonna go. It may end up replacing my Ubuntu install, but I mean, my Ubuntu install is pretty stable at this point, so I don't know.
All right. Nate, how are you, sir?
Doing well. You know, life's good. Been busy.
Been missing you. Been missing you here.
Plural, not singular, plural. So I did not have time to actually run Mate this week. Now, I've been running Mate for years on a couple machines, but one machine, the Pine 64, and I've never had any issues with Mate. I like the welcome screen. I mean, really, the only negative thing I can say is it doesn't have zipper. So that's really where I'm going to stand on that one.
All right. Peter, you are up.
Nate was a lot shorter than normal. It surprised me. I wasn't quite ready. Okay,
it's been a busy week. I'm sorry.
Zeb, in the earlier show, you kept mentioning the word mutiny, and I thought, what's he talking about? I just found it in the tweak, and I just ran the mate tweak, and found mutiny, which is a kind of clone of Unity. Okay, so that's a nice little feature I didn't notice before. But yeah, it's a solid distro. Ubuntu is very solid itself. 1904 has great features, and the Mate desktop very configurable, as I just found out. So I'm only testing it on a single laptop with one monitor. So, but yeah, I like it.
Zeb, you're muted.
Yeah, that doesn't help, does it? If I if I mute myself,
good, brother.
I thought my headphones are broken.
Yeah, no. So, Bill, Frank, Bill, I'm confused now. But you're up next. Do you want to just give people a little insight as to what you're now doing with Ubuntu Mate?
Okay, so recently I joined the Ubuntu Mate team. It's hard for me to actually say that I'm on the team because I don't really think that my contributions are that big, but Martin has said it. So if Martin said it, then I guess it's true.
Then you're on the team.
So basically what I've been helping with is the 1904 release that we've done, the Pi release that came out, and now doing some of the stuff for 1910. In the earlier edition, Martin came out and said that some of the previous releases of Mate have been very much maintenance releases, nothing really big. And what we're seeing right now is a culmination of some of the stuff that has gone on. And in 1904, going into what's going to become 1910, there's a lot coming up. Martin didn't put the newest version because of the release cycle, the way Ubuntu's release cycle came out. The newest versions of Mate did not make it into 1904, and we're testing those right now, and they will be in 1910. But there's been, I guess actually got to put it into this YouTube chat. Jason Evangelo of Forbes did an article where he said the dark horse, most power efficient distro is going to surprise you. And his results came out with Mate taking that crown. And I'll put it in the YouTube chat in a minute. I'm trying to eat chili and talk at the same time.
I got it. It's in there.
Okay. So it's a good read. It's obviously independent. And if you have questions, I'll try to answer them tonight. Feel free to contact me on Telegram, or it's pretty easy. Frank's MCB at a very large search provider that starts with a G. Send it to that email address, and I'll make sure that anything you guys send to me and what I can write down tonight gets to the development team.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed for that. So there's no point in asking you, do you like Mate? I think that's fairly obvious. Scott, you're up.
Howdy,
Bill's trying-
everyone. Yeah, boy, I really, really wanted to try this distro because I'm a big Mate fan anyway. But I also started out on Ubuntu back in the day. However, I had 2 attempts at installing it, and just consider the fact this is a very old laptop. It's just my test rig, 2005 HP. It wouldn't install. I kept getting an erroneous error 7 about an overheated hard drive and whatnot, even though it's in perfect health. So I couldn't get it installed and I couldn't get it tested. So I just want everybody to know, our audience, you can install something on new equipment or old equipment, and it may or may not work. Don't take that as a bad thing. It's just it's a combination thing, the right software for the right hardware. So sorry I don't have any review on it. I hope to get a new test rig built soon so I can start getting these working better. That's it.
All right. Well, that's okay. Real life gets in the way sometimes. And as you say, it's interesting because Martin was talking about that earlier on in the European show, that although they try to test these distros on as many bits of hardware as they can, and although lots and lots of people outside of the team are testing the distro on different pieces of hardware, it is just a generic build that they try to get to work with as many pieces of equipment as possible.
That's right.
You're going to get some failures sometimes. So yeah, it's just one of those things. All right, Joe, welcome. I know you're a big Mate fan, so let us know what you thought of it, or are you running it still as a daily?
No, I ran 1804 for about a year, and as you know, I missed last week. We had a family member loss. That's why I wasn't here last week. So, and I didn't get to watch the follow-up show, so I didn't realize you were doing 1904. But by comparison, I've always loved, my Mate 1804, and like any other distro, until I break it, it's usually fine. So
that sounds like me now.
Yeah, and that's typically what it is. I really didn't have any. The only thing that I can remember with 1804, which I'd be curious to see if they kind of took care of in 1904, was I was having problems with the Mate. Really didn't have any with the Windows key. If it seemed like I was not touching it for a while, or if the computer was at rest for a little bit, it would take 3 hits to get it active again, and then it was fine. As far as the only other thing, which I know this is not a small undertaking, because I'm on Cinnamon right now still, 1901 or 19.1, and the only complaint I have about that is the occasional freeze, which it hasn't done it for a while on this machine, but it did on my other one. But if they could take the skin, the way, or the theming, the coloration and things like that Mint has, and put it on Mate, to me that would be the absolute cat's meow stellar distro, because Mate is, like everybody said, it's as rock solid as it comes. Customizability, again, this is 1804, so I don't have comparison for 19, which I will try to run here soon. I don't know what changes they may or may not have made, but they're very consistent. Martin's done a fabulous job, because the consistency in that distro, and to me, if you remember right, when we've talked about the conversation about, like the Ubuntu going to the GNOME desktop, or GNOME, why wouldn't they have considered something like Mate? Because Mate, to me, in some ways would be a better fit, because the beauty of it is I don't know of any other distro where you go up and you click and you pick whatever menu you want, or that's set up, but Mutiny or whatever, or Familiar. I mean, and I realized even that early on they had some quirks with it, but it seemed like they got a lot of that ironed out. So I think for anybody coming to this, they always say, Mint or Ubuntu would be, especially for newcomers. I think Mate, to me, is right up there too. And again, you don't have to be a newcomer. You know that. The beauty of it is as a newcomer, it works out of the gate. And as somebody that either is more experienced or becomes more experienced, you could do whatever you want with it. Because I've got Mint here themed exactly like I had my Mate. I mean, it's the exact thing. So, but that's all I can say. And I do apologize for missing earlier today. you're not going to believe what I was doing. I coincidentally happened to be watching the roast of Linus Sebastian, and I still never finished that. So, and then I realized you guys were on, and I went, so I missed another Europe one. So I apologize. Next.
That's all right. It's all good. It's all good. So, Chris, welcome. Good to see you again. Have you tried Ubuntu MATE?
Yeah, I did. I was getting a little frustrated with the hard drive that was in the, my test bed. It was only a 30 gig drive, and which was fine for testing and stuff like that. But it was getting harder and harder to get partition schemes to work on there. So I went out and bought a terabyte drive, and I went wild with the partitioning scheme. Basically var and opt and all the subdirectories off the root menu have their own file system now. Haven't really noticed any difference in performance, but security, it's nice because then I can shut one down, do a file check on it, and not have to worry about operating or screwing up the rest of the operating system. But I don't see much advantage other than that. As far as the actual operation of the system, I have no complaints. I got a little busy this week. We just moved 1935 AM broadcast transmitter from its site in a swampy little broadcast house over to the museum, and that took up most of our time this week, plus a couple other incidents where our tower got crashed into and some other things. So I was trying to do everything in between that and also my paying job. So what I saw of it, didn't really have a problem with it. Everything worked the way it should have. Like I said, I went wild with the partitioning scheme that didn't seem to phase it at all, and it's a solid system.
All right. Eric, you had some good feedback earlier. You want to give it to us?
I have to laugh at the thought of Chris going wild with partitioning scheme.
I was thinking about the same thing. I'm like, wild, man.
Could you imagine what that was like? Woo! Love you, Chris. That is funny because I expect that from you, to never just have a straightforward. So you don't disappoint. Yeah, my feedback earlier was it's like Old Faithful, right? MATE. And I think Frank did a really good job of covering this as well. If you guys didn't watch, you should go back and check it out. But that so many people in the article he wrote recommended either Mint or MATE, Ubuntu MATE, as here's your solid beginner distro. Not just necessarily beginner, but here's just your solid distro, right? You can trust this to put it on somebody's system. It's going to work. The other thing that I really like about MATE is the tweak tool. And you can go in and just basically set whatever desktop layout you want. Very straightforward, very easy, and they have their fun nicknames. Redmond for the Windows layout and Cupertino for the Apple layout. And it just does it for you, which is great.
And my favorite, Mutiny.
Mutiny, of course. And performance is fantastic. I really don't have anything negative. Martin was on and did mention that there are some bugs that they're working on. I'm sure if anyone has anything, Frank could take that away from this. I didn't see anything that was even worth really remarking on. I'm probably going to stick with Ubuntu just because I'm such a Plasma addict at this point. Even though I could make MATE look like Plasma, it's just not the same. So I'll probably not use it, at least on this system. But I have a laptop that my daughter uses that is an older system that I've been looking for, like, what distro should I put on here? And I'm very curious now to see how it runs on that. It's a Core 2 Duo, so it's not a particularly fast or powerful machine. And I have every reason to believe that it's going to be fantastic.
Eric, it'll work fine on a Core 2 Duo. That's my laptop dedicated test machine, and it runs as long as you have an SSD on it, it'll run awesome for everything you're going to ever want to do.
I think that what you were looking for was stabbed rat. Is
Yeah, I was trying to be politically correct and not make Rocco mad like I did last week.
I gotcha.
Well, look, I just put a link in the YouTube channel for Eric's channel because he just started making videos and some really good tips that are not tips you're going to find anywhere else. These are just Eric. Well, Eric, tell us what's on your channel, man.
Well, sorry. So these are all the obscure things that no one else covers. So basically, when I have a problem that I can't figure out right away and I do the research to find an answer, I look and see, has anyone else covered this? Is there a video out there explaining it? And if I can't find something, then it's like, okay, great. Here's an idea for a video. So I've got using IMWheel for increasing your scroll speed if that's a problem you have with an external mouse. The one I just did before this that's actually compiling in the background or exporting in the background is using live input gestures to support 3-finger swiping gestures on your trackpad. So just stuff like that, you know, quality of life, things that I've run up against.
Real life issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I try not to make them too boring, but hey, it is what it is. And if you guys watch them and you have any feedback for me, I'd appreciate it. Thanks for the plug.
All right. Paul, did you try Ubuntu MATE 1904, brother?
I did not try the 1904 because I still have the XFCE on this laptop and I didn't want to blow it out. But I've tried it in the past, and yeah, I do like the menu, and I love that welcome screen because you go into the software, and there's all kinds of software you can pick from right away.
Yep.
Yeah, snaps for there. Yeah. The only problem is sometimes I'd change from Mutiny to Redmond or something, and it would lock that up, the menu.
Well, that was actually one of the issues that Martin talked about in the Europe episode, that they do already have fixes for some of that stuff, especially the layout switching where it hesitates and gives you a blank panel and stuff like that.
Exactly. That's what it was doing to me, but I remember that from last time. So.
Yep. All right. Frank, go ahead.
A quick fix for that, if you want to, is actually just switch it to what you want, switch it to something different, and then switch it back to what you want. And Martin explained it a lot better. There's a race condition that goes on. So the higher performance your machine is, the less likely you're going to have it, but it could still happen. But it's kind of a simple, easy trick to make it work, and that should be completely resolved in 1910.
1910, okay, cool.
All right, Colin, did you try it?
I've tried it the last couple of days in the virtual box, which is very unusual for me, but I've got the computer tied up with other things. Windows 10 of all things. What? Well, it's for the advantage of the Linux community.
Of course it is. Of course it is, Colin.
It's, these things have to be done. So I just can't wait to get it off there. It just seems to be a lot slower than what it used to be. But
did you figure anything different? I mean,
no, yet. No, it's just I appreciate updates on Linux for sure.
Yep.
But I've tried it in VirtualBox. I'm still getting the this is probably a VirtualBox thing, but I changed to Mutiny and that menu wasn't above. But normally a fix for me in the past for that was to select the just a minute, let me have a look. Select the netbook one, and then you go back to Mutiny. That normally works. Always back to netbook, and then go back to the one that you're selecting. That always seemed to have worked for me. So don't know if that's still the case, but I didn't try it on here because it's just a VirtualBox. So normally it runs better on real hardware, of course. So I can't sort of make too many judgments on that because of VirtualBox. So and VirtualBox just doesn't seem to be the same since it became number 6. There always seems to be some little quirky issues with it recently. Can't put my finger on what it is, but I'm not judging anything in that. So, but yeah, I have to mention the welcome screen is excellent. The software boutique is just brilliant. Just love that thing. But the MATE desktop for me, it's not one that I normally run. It's just not for me. So I'm probably the same as Zeb. Just something about the MATE desktop that I just can't sort of get along with it. so to speak. But I still like it, but it's just I find other desktops more appealing to me than the Mate one. So, but the 1904 seems to be looking pretty good so far. It's not crashing or anything. So, like Derek said, where did he say earlier in the chat? Derek said that Wimpy should throw in a kernel panic every now and then just to make it a bit more exciting.
Yeah, that would be cool. No, it wouldn't be cool.
Because it just works. So,
it would be a fun joke, though, if they did put just randomly flashed up a blue screen of death screenshot, randomly, just to give you memories.
With the wording right at the bottom, just for you, Derek.
No.
So, yep, but it's running fine, and as you would expect anyway. So, yeah, that's my experience this week. I've been pretty busy, and life is getting in the way in the last few weeks, and I've been pretty hard at it. So, with real life, so I haven't really had much of a chance. I'm getting by making videos only just, so hopefully things will get back to normal this week.
Yeah,
so
that's it. All right, Chicken, you're up.
All right, well, first and foremost, this is a fantastic release. Like, Ubuntu Mate has been doing better and better since I first started using it, and this is probably just what's the good version of nail in the coffin? Like, it's the tip of the iceberg. It's the good stuff. It's the juicy bits in the center. It's been rock solid, stable for me. I've typically in the past had issues with Mate where it would constantly have like applet pieces crash or issues with like kind of window decorations not working properly, and sometimes they glitch around with or without the compositor. None of that was present this time. It was fast, like incredibly fast, even on like a really old laptop. So I was really impressed by that. It was very flexible. The Mutiny layout, Rocco, you know what's good. And overall, I was just very, very impressed. And I think Ubuntu Mate is definitely the kind of distro I can recommend to a lot of people. Between the Software Boutique and the Tweak tool, it's solid.
You didn't see the Europe edition, did you?
I did not.
So Martin had some news that, I had mentioned that one of the issues is still the large icons in the app indicator system tray or whatever. Yeah. And blammo, they're fixing that. It's fixed in 1910. So
this is good stuff. He knows.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I unfortunately, as much as I would have loved to be there, I was out watching Detective Pikachu.
Okay. All right, cool. So, Barbara,
yes.
There's no point in coming to you because you won't have hopped to Ubuntu Mate. So,
hey, wait a second. I'm the one who had the weird installation problem on a Dell Precision that has 3 drives. 4 works, 2 works, 3 it went squirrely, and I had to actually go into FS tab and fix it. I had no problems on any other machine that had like 2 drives. And other than that, I've been using Ubuntu Mate since I think 1704. And it does once in a while, it does something squirrely, but it is still rock solid. It's the one that I recommend to people because they can install it and it works and it doesn't crash on them. And, for me, I know I'm the Mate fangirl. I can't help it. I missed the UK show this afternoon and I was busy, so I wanted to listen. I'll listen to it later. Other than the one real squirrely thing with installing it when you have 3 drives in a laptop, everything else has really worked really well. It's also faster. I did notice that. And that made a difference. It's a little bit of a difference, but it still makes a difference. If you think about, how long you sit there and use it. Configurability, other than the fact that it's that icky green, green looks good on plants, okay? Not on my desktop. And, you can configure it any way you want. You can change colors if you want. You can do all sorts of things. So it's not like you're stuck with that. And I saw in the on the YouTube chat, somebody complained about the fact that there are just a few wallpapers that come. Yeah, the wallpapers aren't the greatest, but you know what? You can add anything else you want, which is what I've done. But it just works. It's like what Zeb said. It just works. You set you install it, reboot, and you're off and ready. It sees, except for my one weird little problem, which I fixed, it sees file servers, it sees printers. You don't have to worry about doing any of that or sitting there and screwing around and just trying to get it to work. So I don't know. I'm the Mate fangirl. What can I say?
Mm-hmm. No, that's all good. And with regard to the comment about it doesn't have that many wallpapers that you can use, hey, there's this little thing called the internet.
Yeah.
And you probably get 16 billion wallpapers.
Or if you have your own set of files, photos, whatever, you can plop those in. That's what I've done. And I periodically change them. My one thing.
Variety.
Yes.
Use variety.
Variety.
The one thing that does still bother me, and I think my Mac spoiled me with this, and there are some versions of different distros that do this. If I have I have 4 workspaces set up, and it would be really nice if each one I could assign a different wallpaper to.
Hey, Barbara, will you just get with me after the show and I'll send you my script?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I will. Thank you. And that to me is the only thing that's ever really driven me crazy.
What wallpaper manager is it? Variety? There's what?
Nitrogen.
Nitrogen lets you set different desktops, right?
I don't know. I haven't tried that.
Yeah, I think it does. I'd have to look, but anyway.
Are you using GTK or what are you using for a compositor?
To me?
Yes.
I'm using, what is it, Marco?
Yeah.
Whatever it comes with.
Yeah, Marco.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I just left that and I've installed it on like a ThinkPad T420. No problems. You can install it on old equipment, new equipment. The one I've got right now is I bought this computer in January, and it's up to date, modern, 8th generation i7 and so on. So can't go away. Sorry.
Even the cat likes it, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she's a pest. But yeah, I have not had any problems at all in terms of getting all the equipment and everything to work.
Nice. All right, Mr. Arch, did you try Ubuntu MATE?
Yes, and it ran fine, like all the Ubuntus do. It's good and solid. The one issue I had isn't anything that is the fault of Ubuntu MATE. It's the fact that a bunch of the PPAs that I use to get as close as possible to a rolling release on Ubuntu installed for Disco, but only were updated through Cosmic. So I had to go in and manually change the config files for them. But that's not on Ubuntu MATE. I do have one question that I didn't have time to look into. In KDE, I can set which desktop and which screen an application will open in automatically without having to set up extra scripts like in XFCE. I know there's Devil's Pie, but in KDE, in Plasma, you can just do it right in the desktop. Is there something like that in MATE?
Not as far as I know.
Okay.
Not as far as I know either.
That was the one question that I had, but other than that, it ran great. It did everything I asked it to do, and I couldn't get it to crash as much as I tried.
Nice. All right, Steve. Good to see you again. Did you try Ubuntu MATE?
Well, of course, it's my daily driver.
So
Actually,
let me ask you, did you upgrade to 1904?
I did, and I have a couple of comments about the upgrade process that maybe Bill can note as well. I've been running MATE, for a good long time now. You guys know that I also like Bodhi Linux, but as soon as I got 2 machines that both had 4 gigs of RAM, I went back to MATE.
both at home and at work. And my history with my love of Mate goes way back when I was using Linux. I went to Ohio Linux Fest. I think it was probably 2007 is the year. And there was a new kid on the block, a new Linux distribution called Foresight Linux. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It's defunct now.
No.
But they were a Linux distro that was really something special back then because they did Delta packaging. They had their own package manager, Canary, and they did Delta packaging so that you didn't have to download as much. And that was back when you didn't necessarily have the speed of internet that we have now. So that was an appealing feature. And they really specialized when they first came out on GNOME 2.0 when it was fresh out of the box and all of its goodness. And I remember trying to run Foresight, but of course I'm always running crusty hand-me-down hardware because that's what I have access to. And it didn't run that great. So then I come back to Linux many years later and I'm trying different distros and I run into Ubuntu Mate and I'm, wow, why does this look so familiar? Oh, because it's like GNOME 2.0. So that was a breath of fresh air. And Foresight Linux also had that beautiful green theming. So I felt right at home when I came back to Mate. So that was a great experience and has been a great experience. But just a couple of things for Bill about the upgrade process. So I upgraded from 1810 to 1904. And on both of my machines, they're both older laptops with 4 gigs of RAM, completely different chipsets. I had a crash occur on both at the exact same time of the upgrade process when the kernel 5.0 was installing for the 1904 version. It crashed, gave a message that was going to try to do some depackage command and then try to recoup itself, and apparently whatever magic it did in the background during the install process, it did work. But every time you boot it up, it would complain that there was a kernel crash. But all it was doing was rereading the old crash report. So I had to go in manually into var/crash and just delete the .crash files that are in there. And then that warning didn't come up anymore. And I've noticed that a couple of times I had the notifications crash on Mate as well on one of my computers. And it leaves a crash file in that var/crash. And even though I don't think the notifications are always crashing, because it crashed once, that notification box will pop up probably about, 2 minutes after you log into your desktop and warn you that you've had another system crash and you want to send the system report. And you click yes. And I've done that several times. So I'm hoping, and maybe Bill knows this better than I do, but I'm hoping that those crash reports are actually being sent to the Ubuntu Mate team, and they're seeing those crash reports so that I can safely delete those crash files and then just kind of move on. But always love Ubuntu Mate. The only thing I would love to do more of is find a way to be involved with their team and help out the community a little bit more. And that's one last thing I like to mention is one reason why I love Mate so much is because of the community. They have an amazing community on their forums, very responsive. There's just all sorts of people in there that are willing to give you a helping hand. And I had a very niche issue with the power indicator, the battery indicator. When you have a mouse that has a battery that's still got plenty of charge in it, that's probably going to last a couple of weeks yet, but it's low. It keeps flashing the warning up every few minutes when you move it, that there's a low battery in the mouse, and that's really annoying. And there's no way you can change that in any of the settings. But there was a community member who gave me a Python script that I could just run on startup and fix that. Just would basically shut that window down as soon as it appears. And that's just an example of just the awesome community that they have and the great people that are involved with the project.
So thank you for the kind words. Let me touch on your first issue, that upgrade from 1810 to 1904. getting that it's 5.0 kernel bug. I've experienced it, and there are several bug reports that have been sent upstream, and they're still open. As you found out that it works fine, it's just there's a very long history that you could read through if you want to read through some bug reports that it apparently exists randomly, and it's gone back for, but it's just really weird, and it doesn't just affect Mate. For the var crash, so that if you get the pop-up and you've had an error and it asks you to send a message, it'll actually, for some reason, will not always delete out of var crash. So what will happen is the system will check periodically to see that, and it'll come back and say, you had a system error, do you want to send again? And I think, as you've seen, if you get it once and you send it off, you've done what you're supposed to do, and it most of the time will remove it. Occasionally it will not, and you have to go in and manually do that, but it doesn't hurt anything to go in and just remove that. And then your comment about the community, it's we kind of talked about it a little bit in the previous show, and I plugged a little thing that I wrote up that you all contributed to. One of the big things that I get in reading that and what I wrote is the community is one of the reasons that I wanted to get involved with Mate. There is a lot of help. You can actually interact with the lead developer. It may take a little bit of while, but you can actually get the lead developer to answer things if it needs to happen. And that community provides a lot to, I think it's one of the models of how a community should interact. Obviously, there's things that aren't perfect, but there's a lot of good information available if you just want to take a minute to look. And if you want to talk about the community, if you hit F1, if you're running Mate, you're going to get this big pop-up, and it's a nice detailed information about your system. So if you want to look and get some information on how different applications work, it's something that Larry Bushy wrote up, and it's awesome. Sorry.
But that's something that you have to have a program open, right, Frank?
Yeah, you have to be on the if you're on the desktop and you just hit F1, you're going to get the desktop user guide, and it's going to tell you an overview of some of the skills you need, how to use the panels, the applets, the buttons. It's got, I was saying it, can you guys go onto your desktop and hit F1? Do you get it?
I get it on, if I have the file manager open, I get it, but I don't get it on just the desktop.
Okay,
I do on the desktop. When I just click on the desktop and then hit F1, it
right.
comes up.
Maybe it has to do with the different layouts.
It's just you, Rocco.
It probably is.
No, I haven't got F1 on the desktap.
I have.
See?
I got
I'm
it.
not the only one.
But then both you and I are running Mutiny, Rocco.
I am running Mutiny, so I don't know. Chicken, you're running Mutiny, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm running it.
Can you do F1 on the desktop and see if you get that?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I don't get it. I don't get nothing when I hit
that
F1.
was a thing until now.
Doesn't like it.
I get it for everything as far as like the terminal or the file manager or whatever program I have open, but I don't get it for just the desktop. Weird.
Would that have anything to do with the keyboard mapping for the key?
Shouldn't. If everybody else is getting
Would
it.
it have anything to do with a single pixel?
It might, Vash. It might.
Rocco,
Who let this Vash guy in
feel
anyway?
better? I'm not getting it either.
See?
On just the desktop.
See?
I never noticed it because I normally
didn't.
don't press it.
I think if you keep the default green color, you get it.
Is that what it is?
Probably,
Steve?
and I got rid of it.
Well, then I will never get it.
Exactly. Your loss.
All right, enough with this banter. Steve, you did not get, because of the host, one of the hosts' fault here, that you did not get to talk in the Europe edition because they forgot to get back to you on your experience with Ubuntu Mate. So you want to give it now?
I mean, that's okay. I had problems. I have not fully tried it. I've been busy this week. I was getting ready to come to Vermont here, and I've been working. I have it on a USB. I did run it live for a little bit. It's looking nice. I do gotta say that Mate is probably my second favorite desktop maybe system. It kind of has to me a little bit of an XFCE feel. The menu and that, the way you can set up the panels, and you come in with the dark theme kind of like right out of the box. All works well for me. I'll probably try it a little bit more as I get a little free time. I got some free time tomorrow. Run it live. I didn't get a chance to install it, so yeah. I mean, Martin did a real good job. It was a very interesting talk, especially after the show this morning or this afternoon when he was on. He was really going on too. He had a lot to say.
Yep. Well,
but
I just wanted to throw in there, I don't got nothing new as far as to add from what I said earlier, but I did want to throw in there that there are a few problems with Ubuntu Mate. They are working on it. The one problem is with switching with the layouts. You don't always get the layout you want. Like you install it and you go to switch to Mutiny or something like that, you'll get a blank panel. Or if you switch to Redmond, you'll get a blank panel. But if you switch to a different layout and then switch back, it automatically works. But that specific issue has been fixed in 1910, right, Frank?
Yeah, let me talk correctly. Yes, it has.
Okay. The one other issue that I was having with the themes, where Martin said he'd have to look into it and do a little bit more testing, was the themes would not apply correctly for me when I would do it. Like they would apply maybe the second or third time that I would click it. So I would click a new theme and half of the theme, say I clicked Arc Darker or something, half the theme would come on, but the window title bars wouldn't switch. And then I would click it again or click off and click back on, and then it would completely switch. So I'm not sure exactly what was going on there. It's kind of the same issue. It felt like the same issue as with the layout not switching properly, but either way.
It's interesting you guys all are saying that, because comparing again back to 1804, Mate was always one of the distros that never seemed to have problems with multiple monitors. Although I will grant it, like you said, with the menu choice, the desktop environment, that sometimes had issues switching back and forth and would throw your settings off. That's why many people don't know that you can actually set up your desktop the way you want and save it as a profile in there for your own desktop setup.
Yep. And I want to echo one more thing that Eric had said. I don't know if he said it in this episode or the previous episode, but Ubuntu Mate is like the fastest distro to, I won't say the installer itself, but from start to finish, install to customizing it to the way you want and adding the software, it is the fastest one you can find for me. And that includes the reasons of having the software boutique, where you can just click, 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 and just do installs. And I want to say that in past versions, the software boutique didn't always, when you were doing multiple programs together, it didn't always function the way you wanted to. Some errors and whatnot. And I installed 14 different programs with software boutique at once, and it just ate up through them and went flawlessly. So they've done a lot of good work in it.
The one thing, Brock, we got to clarify when you say that, though, is it's not actually installing all 14. It goes down the list or the line. But
right. It goes one by one.
It's a one-click operation, and it goes through it by itself.
Right.
Which that's a sin that more distros don't kind of have that feature, because it can be frustrating, especially when you get like us, you get hopping for a while or whatever, and you got to go through and pick each one and wait for it to install and pick another one and wait to, that's beauty. You just, like you said, you just check them and go.
Yeah, I mean, you can obviously do that in a terminal. I mean, you could put in and just do multiple programs at once. But I'm saying, as far as the GUI, as far as comparing it to other distributions, fastest by far.
You can do that also with Synaptic, with that package manager.
Right.
You can set it, click off everything that you want to install, and then click apply and walk away, make a cup of tea, and come back.
But this also has, the software boutique, Barb, has ones that are not in Synaptic, because it
I know that.
has PPAs. I'm just clarifying for everybody else.
I go through the software boutique first, Then I go to Synaptic.
Right.
That's how I do it.
I found that Synaptic had probably every single program that I wanted, and maybe there was one, I don't know, but almost every single program that I needed or wanted to install on that machine, it was in the software boutique. So
And one of the things I forgot to mention in this time around, but I mentioned it on the earlier show, I don't know what Ubuntu MATE have done, but they have just taken the FPS crown when I do my Rise of the Tomb Raider screen testing to see how well a distro is working. Up until this point, it was a toss up between Antex Deepin and Salient OS, where we used to get somewhere between 128 and 130 frames per second. But something happened with NVIDIA 418 and maybe the latest kernel, and they all went down to sort of like the 110s, the 115s. Did the test on MATE this morning, 126. So I don't know what tweaks they've done, but I think it might be what's also making it feel snappier and faster and quicker to people. They've done some tweaking, they've got rid of some bugs, and at the moment it's the top of the hill for my particular game test to make sure that the FPS is running properly. You're muted, Eric.
Oh, yeah. I just want to say, there's just such a focus on practicality, and I don't mean that in like a negative way, but they understand you're probably not just going to use Firefox. Maybe you will, but if you don't, there's a way to install any browser you want right there. They've curated those packages like we were saying in the software center. Let's install this, get it in front of you, give you the tools you need to get up and going. And I think that's what I'm hearing over and over from everybody is just, first and foremost, it's the usable system, right? And then, maybe people don't like the green, or maybe you've got to change some things around, but those are so minor compared to the solid foundation and how much time it saves from that perspective.
Yep. And the welcome screen goes along with that, from, having your additional drivers to going down the list of adding the multimedia codecs to here's your appearance settings if you want to change the theme. Here's, just down the list one by one. It just has everything you need to start up, and it's pretty awesome.
Yes.
So one of the reasons, and Martin mentioned this earlier, but he's mentioned it in many different podcasts and other places, so it's not like a secret. A lot of what is in MATE came out of him for his family and supporting an operating system that they could use that had everything. I believe one of those things was for his father-in-law, that some of the apps that are in there in the software boutique are just there for him. So if you think about not just creating, but having an operating system that your family can use, being one of those factors and why you're making it, I think that's going to spread out to the larger world, that they're going to have the same thing where they're going to have family members or people that aren't supercomputer experts trying to use a distro. And that's sort of one of the reasons it exists. And it's just not for them. Once you're in there and have done that, it can grow to be for a power user, for a sysadmin. So, I mean, I think that part is
and to further your point, Frank, that's part of the reason why when you put together that article for the best distro for a new user, or is there a best distro for a new user, that Ubuntu MATE was one of the top because of that fact, because it was designed for real people to use, and it just translates into this is what you would recommend for somebody who's just starting out.
And on that note, I just don't want to take anything away from Linux Mint, because Linux Mint had a very nice showing in that article. And if you take Linux Mint and just look at it, you can see, I'm not going to try to compare apples and oranges, but there's some of that same idea that this isn't distro for a user that they can just use and goes forward. And that, I mean, it showed in that little article that what the people in this community wrote up and thought about, the far and away, those are the two distros that got mentioned the most.
Yep.
It's one of the reasons I love MATE is because I use my Linux computers mostly just to use the productivity software. It's real easy to just get up and going with the productivity software, Office suite, and everything else that you would need to just get normal household and work activities done in a timely fashion.
Yeah, I was going to say kind of the same thing. I mean, when you look at when you see these lists of, the top distros or whatever, I mean, you could theoretically have almost like a dual list. And the reason I'm saying that is you've got Mate, which is a little more heavily packed with some stuff right out of the gate, like you mentioned, the Office suites, things like that. And then you've got Peppermint right there, which, that's a screaming distro. It's lighter out of the gate because it isn't packed with everything, but yet it's got at least the basics to get started with, and you could add what you want, and it doesn't really affect how it runs. And we could go down the list. You want something for more advanced users. I mean, you could get into Salient and, you can get into Kubuntu's and all that. So, and then elementary too. Let's not leave Mr. Chicken out here, whose favorite love is, there's even that for, again, and again, this is not a pun, but like elementary, I always said would be great for the school environment. That's like the perfect distro for kids to learn on, I think. So that's why that list could almost be a dual or even a triple column going down of equality, depending on what the needs are.
Yeah, if you guys haven't watched the Europe stream, I think we go into that where Martin was talking about how the beauty of open source and Linux in particular is that you can take this foundation and whatever interests you push in that direction, right? And Mate is an example of Martin himself having these virtues that he wants to, support for his family and see in his distro, but he's building off of other things. And then and that's like someone said, Anna in the chat, there is no perfect distro, right? There are so many because so many people have different passions and different focus, and we all benefit from that and have so many choices. And, I appreciate that about when we review distros on here, because mostly people are positive. Mostly people are providing their own experience in using it and can find good in all of them. I'm off on a little bit of a tangent, but I mean, that was sort of the sentiment, was that you're able to take something that is great and make it tailored to you, and then get feedback in the community. And like Steve's saying, the community is really what's driving this, and it's amazing. It's some kind of magic, right? It really is.
Yep, I agree.
I haven't watched the European edition. I'm just kind of curious if Martin mentioned anything about the Raspberry Pi edition. Did he mention anything about that?
I can't remember if that was on stream or if it was afterward, because we stayed and chatted for a while about Pinebook and stuff like that. I don't remember if that was on stream.
No,
he only mentioned the Pi once about the compositor.
So, is there anything you want to? We can talk about the 1804 Pi version a little bit.
Yeah, I love to just mention the fact. You guys know that my 14-year-old son is big into Linux and programming and everything, and he decided to switch things up on his Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, I think it is, the latest one that's out, and he downloaded. I think it's the experimental version, the 64-bit version.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Considered the experimental. And I said, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that. I heard that the 32-bit is much more stable, and you should maybe go back and re-download that." And he's been using the experimental one for weeks, and he loves it. He's like, "I don't see a reason to use anything else." He's like, "This thing's rock solid." And he doesn't play YouTube videos. I think it's mostly like video playback that is where you get some of the issues with the experimental one, but he does all sorts of programming on it. He says it's just rock solid, loves it.
I've been having problems with sudo working on it.
On the Pi?
Yeah, I can't seem to get my account to. I put it in I created a wheel account. I put the wheel account or the wheel group in the sudoers file, and I put my username in the sudoers file, and I still can't get it to accept it as a. I created a password for the root account, so I can get into the root account. I can still do what I need to do. I mean, forget you trying to use sudo or sudo. It just keeps saying that you're not authorized. The incident has been recorded. So
He hasn't had that trouble. He's been installing all sorts of software as he tries new programming stuff.
Yeah, that's the first I've really heard about a sudo issue. I mean, please feel free to throw a bug or a post on Discourse about that.
I'm not totally sure it's not me that's screwing it up. Also,
Still feel free to do that, because it's the community part that really is the good part. If you put something in there and it's an easy error to look at, people will tell you, oh, you just misspelled this. And I mean, I've mistyped so many things in my life that it's insane. But on the Pi, so the 64-bit does not have the video acceleration built into it. So if you're doing VLC, it's going to stutter. But I've got a Pi sitting over here, a 3B, and I can throw in, I think, about 5 Firefox tabs and stream from the media server below me a movie in VLC, and it works. Now you throw a few more tabs on there and it's going to start stuttering. But I mean, it's if you have $35, buy a Pi, and it's kind of really amazing what he's done with Mate and on the Pi. To a little bit we got into on the Europe edition, there's a lot of the stuff that he's learned from that's going to apply to the Pine books that are coming out. And you're going to see some really cool stuff, hopefully in the future, from Pine, and Mate is going to be on them. I don't think that's letting the cat out of the bag or anything.
Nice. All right, any other thoughts on Ubuntu Mate before we go on? All right, so I will say this kind of like I always say every week that we talk about a distro. If you like a distro, if you use a distro and you enjoy using it, find a way to contribute somehow, whether that be money or whether that be time or just being in the community. Find a way to contribute to the people that put in all of the hard work. So I did put a link in the chat for Ubuntu Mate, and that's it. We just got to pick another distro for next week.
Well, I wanted to actually...
Go ahead, Eric.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I don't want to get us too far off track, but based on what you just said, I wanted to follow up on that. So there's been a conversation on Twitter that Jason Evangelo from Forbes started about how do we contribute to the various open source projects that we love if we're not developers. And he is working on an article that I think he'll be publishing this week coming up. And there's been a lot of good feedback and discussion going on there. So I know for me personally, it's not always clear how I can do that. And so I'm very much looking forward to that. And there's been a lot of good feedback, and I think we're going to see maybe some more explicit requests for, hey, this is the kind of stuff we're looking to get feedback and help on.
Well, maybe that's something we can talk about once that article comes out, and we can discuss the different ways. So.
Yeah.
Rocco, there's a couple of new ones out of Distro Watch. Well, not new ones, but updates to Project Trident and also Super X OS, if that interests anybody.
Trident would be a great BSD release to no, it's just skip
Derek.
Rocco, are you going to stick with the 1904?
I think we're going to stick with the 1904s.
We still got Ubuntu and Budgie to go.
Yeah,
well, you have
I've done
Kylan is on chilling,
Not
however you want to say.
1904.
Do they not have a 1904?
They good
Who?
question.
Chillin, Kylan, however you want to say it.
That's Chinese.
I think Trident and Super X are both 1904.
Well, we were
Yeah,
trying
we're
to
working
do
our way through the Ubuntu.
right. We were trying to do the Ubuntu's before we move on to something
Yeah,
else.
Kylan does have
Ubuntu is the next one, probably.
Did we do Ubuntu Studio?
Not yet.
That would be my vote.
I'm going to vote for Kylan.
If we do Studio, we all have to meet here next Saturday using the Jack server.
I think there's only going to be two. You and
the
Dave.
issue with going with something like Kylan is that just in general, it's not targeted towards English users at all. It's for Chinese users. It's made to support Chinese input, like out of the box, and handle all of that stuff. It'd be kind of pointless for us to do that because we really don't understand that unless we're familiar with that market at all. I'm not.
Or that language.
Yeah.
I
So I
say
don't
we
think
go and try Ubuntu.
I know why you say that, Rob.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, but if we do Studio, we can talk about real-time kernels.
Right? That would be
Ooh.
so interesting. That's why we need to try Ubuntu.
That didn't make a whole lot of sense there.
No, it did actually.
That made perfect sense.
Somebody understands what Rocco's trying to say.
At least somebody does.
I don't think you were here for that show, Barbara, but we had, I think, 15 to 20 minutes of
low latency kernel talk.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I was there.
And that
Oh,
was
you was
like
here, yeah.
Yeah, I was here.
snooze fest.
Giving it large, and I forget who else he was talking to. But
I'm surprised I stayed awake. Just saying.
So the Rocco, to answer your question, Budgie does have a 1904 as well.
yeah, but when was the last time we did Budgie?
Did we do Budgie?
But we did 1804.
No, forget when.
Beta.
It would be a bit silly to go back and do. Although it's 1904, we've literally only done it within the last month, I think.
Yeah, it was very recent.
I'm actually for Ubuntu.
We did the Budgie desktop is what we did, so everybody just did Budgie.
And
Right,
chose
whatever backend they wanted.
their distro of choice.
Maybe we'll make Ubuntu Budgie last. That way there's a lot of separation.
Mhm.
Time. But
You know,
Ubuntu-
eventually you got to try Fedora 30 too, Rocco.
Yes.
You're
yes.
already behind.
I know, but we got to get through the Ubuntus, man.
And then we'll probably be doing Fedora 31 by that point.
So
I don't know if they're even going to put out 31.
Can't release that fast, Barbara.
Oh, okay. I was being facetious.
Well, no. From what I understand is they're going to start slowing down on the releases. 31, I think, is going to be past a 9-month.
They ended up reverting that change, unless they've changed their minds again, which I wouldn't be surprised. They're supposed to be changing their build tooling, which is what's going to slow everything down, but they're still not sure on what they're doing. So
Yeah, their 9-month release cycle though is really more like 12 to 14 months anyway. So
yeah, it's all good.
All right, so Ubuntu,
2930 has been pretty quick. So
Ubuntu or Ubuntu Studio?
if we do Ubuntu Studio, do we need hardware that will support the multimedia stuff? Or?
Well, that's something we'd have to check.
Not
I do have
necessarily, no.
Did Sean say he was going to be back next week? Because it would be an interesting take on the differences between Ubuntu and Ubuntu Studio.
Well, what actually needs to happen is by the end of the Ubuntu Studio thing, we all need to have fully functioning YouTube channels with at least a week's worth of content.
Why don't we just try to invite the Ubuntu Studio guy here?
Yeah, we can do that. He's been very vocal and very active, especially with all the issues they had. So we can definitely reach out.
Anybody have an issue with Ubuntu Studio?
Are we doing Ubuntu Studio the distro or Ubuntu Studio the PPA or backport?
No, the distro.
The distro.
I'm all for it.
They do have a 1904, correct?
Mhm.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
Now that I got Monster Drive in here, I can
Do we have to do music creation or anything like that, or we're just trying to distro?
Well, Colin, we're going to. Everybody has to create a song, okay?
I'll line up people's videos. I don't care. Yeah.
I was going to say Naomi Cyborg could help us with chillin' if we get stuck, if we try that one.
Well, we're going to do Ubuntu Studio because everybody wants to.
Yep.
Yes.
So let's do it.
The installer has a lot of different packages that you can install too. The GNOME branding combin, audio, graphics, photography, all that stuff. How we can choose one or do all?
If you install it, put everything in it.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that, because that's what I did when I ran that before Mate. I ran that for a number of months. And if you're really going to test it, put it full boat and see what it does.
Oh, so
You
there's
don't
an
necessarily
option.
have to use everything, but just have it there.
So there's an option to install extras. You're saying, is that right?
No, as you go through the installer, you could decide and click whether you want all the media packages or just click each one that you want out of it or whatever. Every single segment has the whole list of what's in there, and you pick it all, selective, or none.
All right. I asked. I mean, Derek's usually here, but I asked him to come in because I wanted to talk about. He's blowing up the R Linux Reddit.
Yeah, I saw you mentioned that.
He's
Rocco, but-
trending. I got a notification on my phone saying that DistroTube was trending in R Linux. Okay.
Yeah,
And
I haven't posted anything in R Linux in a few days, I don't think.
No, I don't even know when this video is from, Derek, but it's why I choose free and open source software is the video they're talking about.
Yeah, I posted that video last night. It's basically like a 4-minute public service announcement of why you should choose free and open source software. People often ask us the question, why do we run Linux, or why do we run free and open source software? And I just wanted to create something short, to the simple, to the point, just why I run free and open source software. And I tried to answer it in ways that most people probably don't. Most people try to get into really technical stuff about the GPL and copy left and, things like that. And a lot of it was just, I like the developers of free and open source software, how they respect us because they share the code. They're really kind and compassionate to share, what they create with the rest of us. So,
well, I'm going to say, Derek, how dare you make a video like that?
Mm-hmm.
Because some of these comments on the R Linux thing are just unbelievable, and to me is exactly what's wrong with Linux right now.
Yeah, I actually found the deleted thread from Reddit. I'm not shocked. That's kind of social media, though. Like some of the people that were posting some of the crazy stuff. And there were actually people saying that everything they hate about open source software was what I put in the video. I don't understand. I'm like, what?
Why are you making a video about free and open source software on a closed platform like YouTube?
Oh, you know what? I get that question all the time. That's easy to answer. All the eyeballs are on YouTube. Yeah, I can use a free platform where 3 people are going to watch it, and they already know about free software because they're on that free platform. That's like preaching to the choir, right? That's like screaming, to no one.
Well, another guy commented in here how you were using images from non-free software like GitHub and VirtualBox and all that. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. What is wrong with people that they have nothing better to do than to try to find something wrong with a video that you did nothing but try to promote free and open source software?
It's because they got nothing better to do.
Exactly. They each need a life.
Yeah.
Well, drama is what makes this world go round. As much as I hate to say that, if there's a good thing that's going on, yourself that a smaller mass is going to hear about it than if somebody puts some kind of controversial spin or rumor mill out there, and it's just going to go viral because that's what makes the world go round. And it's really sad that has to be the case. And that's where the Linux community has to have a thicker skin and just say, you know what, whatever,
This kind of makes me think about, I was listening to Choose Linux.
Yep.
I know I keep bringing up his name, but it's Jason Evangelo again, and Joe Resington, where he had mentioned, Joe said something about the negative side of the Linux community, the open source community, and the elitism, and Jason had said, "Oh, I haven't seen that," and he's like, "Don't worry, you will, you will." And and this is it, right? This is and I remember when I was getting started, and just I would go on the Arch forum, or I would go, and I'm not calling out them specifically, but just you would go somewhere where they have an expectation of you being educated or having at least tried exhaustively to fix it yourself. And if you didn't do that, then you just got trounced, and unfortunately, go ahead, DD.
Yeah, I think the platform that these people are posting to affects that. Like on YouTube, the comments, I got a ton of comments on that video, all of them positive. But on Reddit, it's kind of a different kind of environment.
Well, I don't want to.
It kind of feeds into the trolls.
All the YouTube watchers are obviously open source hypocrites if they're commenting on the closed platform.
Derek, I don't want to make it sound like you didn't get positive comments.
YouTube.com/runwithitall.
Is Michael Tennell in the house? Or? No, I don't want to make
He's
it sound
clown.
like you didn't get a lot of comments, nice comments, because you did. There were many people chiming in to, defend what you were doing and how you were trying to say it. It's just that it's just eye-opening to see the combative viewpoints of some people when, like, this is not like you're going out and, promoting so you can make money or anything like that. This is you promoting free and open source software, and yet they still find issues with it. It's amazing. It's amazing to me.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand. I mean, we're all going to use closed source software, aren't we?
No,
I mean,
Colin, you're not supposed to. No.
I mean, it's almost unavoidable, really, at the end of the day. Yeah. I mean, we use Linux. We use Linux because we have a choice of the platform we want to use and what we can do with it. But it doesn't mean that we can't use closed source software because.
No, I get this question too a lot, Colin. Am I using one of the official Free Software Foundation endorsed distros? The 100% free distros. Well, if you use NVIDIA, you're probably not. If you have a laptop with like one of the Broadcom chips or something that doesn't have a free driver, you can't use any of those distros. So, I mean, you do have to be kind of pragmatic about it. I mean, you can't use stuff that doesn't work for you. I mean, sometimes you have to use closed source.
Well, I try to use open source as much as I can, but I mean, the thing is, you're using Linux because the choices you can have, you can use whatever you want. You're not stuck to ridiculous updates and all that sort of thing, but you are going to use closed source software. I mean, that's what everybody's using anyway. I mean, you'd have to be. It's unavoidable in most cases, I think.
Well, what makes that any different than what Windows is doing right now? They're incorporating more open source. That's like saying, "Oh, okay, I've got an American car out there, and you've got a Japanese car out there, and they're going to throw shots at it." When in fact, that American car probably has anywhere from 30 to 70% of foreign parts underneath its hood.
Even more.
It's the same thing. I mean, they're still going to commingle to some extent. Nobody's going to be the man who should remain nameless here. Where you just don't. That's not a real world. The real world is somewhere along the line you're going to have that little tidbit of exposure. But the fact is we are seeing more and more open source things coming about, and that's proof right in Windows. What they're doing, Microsoft, what they're starting to incorporate.
It's the nature of the beast anyway. I mean, virgins don't make virgin olive oil.
No. I think it's also to the point now where
wait, what?
Babies don't make baby oil either. So
all right. What are we gonna say, Derek?
I was going to say we've gotten to the point now where, most people, you can't be totally 100% open source and run everything that's open source. You're going to have to run some closed source software occasionally, but also the flip side, you can't be entirely closed source anymore. I mean, open source has penetrated, the zeitgeist. There's so much open source software now, open source development with companies, even companies like Microsoft now and Google and, all these other companies, they kind of commingle, like Colin said. You really can't get away from open source, even if you wanted to.
It's the same scenario, the same choices that you make in security. Everybody has their different level of security and how much prevention they want to take. And it's the same with free and open source software. Everybody has their idea of how, I want to use free and open source software, but I stop at this point because this works better for me. Okay, and it's the same scenario, and everybody's going to be different. And I don't understand each side of the spectrum. I don't understand the people that are way on the right, where everything has to be free and open source software, and I don't understand the people on the other side either, where it's like you're an idiot if you're using that kind of software. So,
hey, Derek, all you got to do is look at it as these people are actually helping you, because if they're watching your channel, negative or not, they're still driving traffic and they're driving your numbers.
That's exactly right.
I mean, all the trolls that want to post, go ahead. I mean, that's YouTube. I mean, it affects YouTube in a positive way as far as their algorithms, people commenting. It doesn't matter if they're saying mean things. So.
Well, I guarantee those people don't have the friendships that we do here.
Yeah.
Well, you're not catering to the extremists anyway. You're catering to the general public.
Yep.
Right.
The reality is you see a lot of distros when they're making their distros, they're including third party and how to like take Solus, for example. They got the third party thing within their software center and all that. If they didn't include that, people wouldn't be using it.
Right.
You know, it's just the reality, isn't it?
Would you rather them still be on Windows, or do you want to actually try to get some people to use Windows?
Exactly.
Right.
Yep, I agree.
Right.
What's one of the first things I do when I install Fedora is I put the free and non-free repos, RPM Fusion in there.
Yep.
Because I don't know where VLC line falls into the line, but I mean, that's there's something Zoom. I mean, I love Zoom. I mean, that's not has a free version, but I mean it's not free in the sense of what Derek was talking about the other day. So, and Derek, the one that turned me on to Zoom too.
Yeah.
You want a platform that you can use that doesn't annoy you, that you can do what you want with it. You can choose how you want to use it, but you can still use the closed source applications because it's just, the platform itself is user friendly and it's yours. Like Derek said, it's yours to own. You can do what you want with it. No one's going to take anything away from you. You can't just shut it off like that. And that's the most important thing, I think, about all of that. Well, it's very true.
Chris, you mentioned Zoom, and that's one area where, I wish there was a free and open source alternative that was better than Zoom, but there isn't. There just isn't.
There's not even any proprietary solutions better than Zoom. I mean, Google Hangouts is horrible in my opinion. So
and that's going away.
It is simply the best.
I think it already went away, didn't it?
Yeah. It's not only the best platform to use for recording, but it's also the best platform to make it the simplest for people to join.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you want. You want people to be able to join without any hassle, and you want to grow the community. So it's like Zoom is the only
it's
choice.
Proprietary software, but the Zoom guys, they create Linux packages.
Yes.
And they create packages for Ubuntu, Fedora, Arch. I mean, the Zoom guys made those packages, right? So
and they also support problems within the Linux world. So
If you want to look at a reasonable way to look at it, look at MX, because I know Dolphin's here. They don't like systemd, and they spell out precisely why in a very nice, eloquent way. Yet, they offer you a way to easily use systemd if that's what you choose to do. And I think that is like a really good way that we should, like here, we don't like it. This is why we don't like it. But if you choose to use it, we're going to make that available to you instead of being jackwagons about it.
I had to think about that, didn't you?
I was wondering where he was going.
Well, I don't really
Way to go, Frank.
understand fully the difference between systemd and anything else. As long as my computer starts, I'm pretty happy.
Well, my father always used to have a phrase, it's easier to attract flies with honey than vinegar. So it's what you choose to do.
Bees too.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, yellow jackets like honey too.
Yeah, the thing about open source software is it doesn't exist just on the Linux platform. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. This is what Derek was talking about a second ago. My wife uses Kdenlive for her video editing. She's using Windows on her Yoga because the Yoga we just never can get anything installed on her Yoga. Her Yoga and I do not want to touch all the little bits and pieces of keys that are inside because this machine is like, don't touch it, okay? But what's she using to edit her videos? Kdenlive. What's she using to keep track of her research? Zotero, which is the big database application for people doing serious research. LibreOffice is what she uses for her stuff. She's sitting there on Windows, and she's perfectly happy using all the open source software in the world that she can get her hands on. And I like 2 weeks ago, she's doing something or other. She says, thank God for open source. And she goes on. That's a Windows user, okay? This stuff's permeated everywhere. And, I mean, anybody here using a GIS application? What are you using? I bet you're using QGIS. It's open source.
So what you're saying is that you had problems with your yoga, so you're suggesting people to namaste away.
Oh my.
Really? Really, Michael?
Oh, God.
So Michael,
Somebody mess up his hair.
Yeah, please.
It says Destination Linux. I don't know who that is.
Well, you definitely have a good point there, Dolphin. When I was using Windows for most of my life, I used programs like 7-Zip, which I had no idea were open source programs. I thought that was just a Windows thing because that's where I used it and that's where I saw it. Turns out 7-Zip is like the most open sourcey of open sourcey things it could be. I mean, it's wide open there.
I love 7-Zip. You know why I love 7-Zip? Because when I'm on my computer at work, hope they're not watching. When I'm on my computer at work and I need to crack open a deb file, I can do that in 7-Zip. And I got the control and the data. It's really nice.
That's amazing.
7-Zip's awesome.
Yes.
I've got sorry, Derek.
Yeah, I was just going to say about Windows. You can't get away from open source software in Windows. Windows was going to start shipping with the Linux kernel soon.
Yes.
A real Linux kernel. So, I mean, there you go.
There we go.
Well, that brings up an article that was on PC World about being the year of the Linux desktop. And the article was basically saying that 2019 is the year of the Linux on the desktop, not because of the Linux desktop, but because of Microsoft going to ship the kernel, and because of Chrome OS deciding that they're going to be able to run native Linux apps. So what do you guys
that's
think?
just ridiculous. The year that the Linux desktop has already happened because Chrome OS is built on Gentoo, so it's already that anyway. So it doesn't. They're just trying to be all clickbaity. I guess what Microsoft Google did it.
So you don't like the article, Michael? I take it.
Well, it's just a pointless article because it's already happened. It's like, what is the most used desktop? Chromebooks, really?
Michael, you are not against using a little clickbait every now and then.
Of course, I would never do that. Touches.com.
No, of course you never.
/clickbait.
That was a burn. That was a burn right there.
Well, I've got a question.
Touches.com/Microsoft, everything.
I've got a question about LibreOffice because I've got someone using Linux and she must be using some complex Excel spreadsheets from her work, and she's having issues with LibreOffice not fully compatible. So I'm thinking maybe I should point her towards WPS because it does say it's fully compatible. Anybody got any experience with that?
Yeah, just point it to Excel on the web.
Excel on the web?
Office
Probably the best
365.
shot. The main problem you're going to get with Excel incompatibility, it depends on what's incompatible. If she's using something really complex like a pivot table, that's not going to translate very well. I don't know about with WPS, but it's not going to translate very well into anything else.
There's another one out
fair enough.
There's another one out there. We talked about it not that long ago. I've got a bookmark. I'd have to look for it. It's drawn
SoftMaker.
Yes.
SoftMaker, yeah.
That's the one I use. It's paid. You got to pay for it, but
you got to pay for it.
has
Yeah.
very good integration with actual Office.
But is there a
Yeah,
reason
but I
you
think the
wouldn't
difficulty
use
is
the online
Dolphin
one?
nailed it on the head. Just Excel has got so many different components to it, and you can make it ridiculously overly complicated.
And you may still find that the Excel version, on the web, the Office 365, there's sometimes some things that still don't work. That's what I found.
On the free
Real
version,
weird things. If she's doing some really, really weird things, she may still not get it to work.
I'm not sure.
Also, the majority of people who use Excel and stuff do not use like complicated formulas.
Yeah, no, they don't. They don't.
Yeah.
Okay. Colin, I actually had this same problem. I had a relative who was trying to view a Excel spreadsheet, and it was actually the formatting that LibreOffice couldn't handle. And I did install WP Office, and it correctly was able to display the formatting. So it is worth trying because you might just be having an issue with how the spreadsheet was formatted, the fonts that were used, how they're displayed, and things of that nature.
Sure. Okay. That sounds good.
Well,
Try that.
Colin, the other thing too is if she didn't install the Microsoft Core fonts in Linux, that can also be a translation issue too, because I know that's a known thing with Libre.
Yeah, Colin, I've seen finance department and sales department come up with stuff that gets sent over in Excel, and it just gets destroyed in any of the non-Excel spreadsheets. So if you have to do it, you can do CodeWeaver has really awesome. If you get CodeWeaver to install Excel in Office into Linux, it is pretty, especially if you go with a little bit of an older version, it works really well.
Right. Okay. Code
I use
Weaver.
Microsoft with Code Weavers. It actually works really well.
Code Weaver. That's
the
not a
crossover.
wine.
That's the crossover Office.
Oh, that's crossover. That's right. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's not free to get though, is it? Crossover, is it?
No.
That's a proprietary. Isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
You can get
I'll
an
have to
older
look at
free version
prices.
if you install Deepin.
Yeah, they do give a. They do give.
Yes, that's true.
They do give a bunch of money into wine development, so you have to think about that if you're going to spend some money. They
I
do.
think they are the primary wine developer.
All right. Check it all out. Thanks.
All right. Anybody got anything they want to bring up before we move on?
18.3 MX.
Dolphin, you're up. Sounds like
18.3. What's that? I don't know what you're talking about.
Didn't you just release 18.2?
We did just release 18.2 last month, and in a very rare move for us, we're going to do an 18.3 rather than a monthly snapshot. It'll be sometime in May. We won't make the 15th, but it'll be in May. All it is, the only reason we're doing it is because we've had a gentleman. He has a rather militant online name. He's AK-47. He's a super guy. I at least in forum conversations, we keep thinking of ways to thank him online without looking like we're, go buy a rifle, stuff. Try to stay away from it. But at any rate, he came out of the blue, and he's, this is the great thing about open source and having everything up on your Git repository in the public. He's like, I think your installer could be sped up, which is already pretty freaking fast, but he's been working on it for a month. And so you're never going to get anybody to use it unless you spin off another ISO. So we're going to spin off another ISO to feature the new installer. Right now it's new enough that translations aren't done for the new strings yet. So I'm going to hold off as long as possible for that. But yeah, I literally posted like half an hour before I came on the show about someone test this kernel out so that we can put it on the new ISO. And wow. Okay. Out of the bag.
Thanks to Dolphin for getting the stream demonetized.
How did I get your stream demonetized?
Oh, that's right. It's not monetized.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah. Well, if you were open source, you wouldn't have to worry about money. That's one of the great myths, right? We only got to worry about myths. We took a look at the finances for our expanded servers and everything this year, and we're a relatively small project. Okay. I mean, we got a lot of people working on it, but it's not an enormous user base, and we're covering the cost for the servers, so I'm happy. We're okay. So Google, don't demonetize Roku Stream. It'll be okay.
It's not monetized.
Well, how about monetizing his stream?
No.
Send him some cash.
No. It's all good. All right. What else? What are you guys bringing up?
Have we talked about the Mozilla plugin problem? Or did we do that last week?
We did. And we talked about that, I guess, for a while. And people had their different opinions on it. And then they released their 66.04 to make sure that, I guess, that it's not going to happen again. I don't know.
Yeah, two or three releases this week.
Yeah.
And they've done a 6605 now as well, haven't they?
Yes.
They also put out the statement basically saying, hey, we made a mistake. We get it. We're sorry. We didn't want to.
Thanks.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, at least it was like an honest response.
I installed Brave, just saying.
Well, then there's your closed source browser.
How many Bitcoins did you get?
I didn't get any Bitcoins, dude. I didn't get any Bitcoins.
You know what? I went all the way. I installed the Edge beta.
Did you?
No, I didn't.
Wow.
Does anybody else use
The
Brave?
canary build of Credge.
Credge.
Chromium Edge.
Does anybody else use Brave?
I have Brave.
I have it installed, but I don't use it on a regular basis.
I have an
flip-flop
Android
back and forth.
I have an Android phone and I use it on there, and it works particularly well on mobile, but on desktop, I just don't see the point.
Firefox. That's all I'm saying. That's just one word.
Yep.
Yeah. Unless I'm in the terminal links. Yeah.
I kept
You're
waiting
in the
for my
terminal. You should use Browsh.
Right?
Yeah, I mean,
links. What the heck?
Just curl.
Just use links.
right.
Get hardcore, man. Crack up the VT100 terminal, fire up links.
There you go.
Yep.
Cranky out a little Fortran 77 and you know.
So
Michael's trying to talk, but
Michael's-
nothing's coming through.
Michael, I
You're
muted.
muted.
Michael's
Mike.
muted.
Wow.
I muted you, Michael. I muted you because you were typing on the keyboard really loud.
I was
He
not,
didn't even
I wasn't
know that
typing at
someone
all.
wanted
You
to-
were earlier.
No, I wasn't typing at all.
You were earlier.
Fake news.
Okay,
Hashtag.
that's gotta make it-
Fake news.
What were you gonna say?
I don't even remember. I was, basically I was telling Dolphin that he's missing out on something amazing that is Browsh watching a video in the terminal through a mosaic filter. Like, how is that not better than everything else?
Why are you trying to watch video in the terminal? Like the whole idea.
Why are you not?
I would open up a graphical browser if I wanted to watch a video.
Derek,
Because
did do a
the
video
graphical
on
browser doesn't give you a
something?
mosaic filter, and you got to embrace the Browsh.
Honestly, I feel like putting that on Annex Core just because.
Face the Browsh.
You should. You should.
It just sounds like this kind of thing we should have over there on the Annex side.
To be fair, though, it probably, I don't know, do you have Firefox included on an Annex?
Core doesn't even have X. It's just a terminal
Oh.
prompt.
Well, Browsh is a terminal emulator that uses the Firefox engine in the back end.
Oh, okay. That's not weird.
You're right. It's not. It's amazing.
It's beyond weird.
It's weird. If Michael uses it, it's weird.
Doesn't
wanna
that mean
have-
you have to have Firefox installed though?
Yeah, you
Yes.
have to have a graphical browser installed anyway. So why didn't you just open that up? Right?
But does the graphical session have to be running?
Because
I don't
Linux
think
is
so. I
supposed
think you
to
just-
hurt.
I
think you
just
just need
really
to
want to try it
What
now.
it's doing
But
is
I remember somebody doing a video about browsing in a terminal distro too, and that was some time ago. Do you remember that, Derek?
No, I've done a few.
Yep. And it wasn't all that painful, but it's just
No, it's
it
not.
might hurt after doing it for a while.
I mean, if you're, yeah, it's painful.
would it be possible
It's
for
very
browsing-
painful. It's more painful than reviewing Ryan's pixelated games. Come on.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, actually, if I don't have a text-based browser that gives me real-time ASCII art and full motion video, not worth it.
That's a good point.
Now, a pro tip: the great thing about having a terminal-based browser on your system is if Xorg ever breaks, all you got to do is drop into TTY, fire up links, and you can go find support. You can read the Arch Wiki, whatever. So you're never,
Is
in a
this-
bad situation.
Is this all free and open source software, Derek?
No, of course.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Just gotta check.
How dare you even ask such a question?
Have you not been following his Gopher threads past couple days, couple weeks?
No. Did I mention that that I'm going to Self? Did I mention that?
Nice. Nice.
I am so super excited. I'm going to meet PZ in person. That's what I'm excited about. See
How
that?
dare you?
Oh, and Michael too, and Ryan and all them other guys.
Mhm. I'm also going to meet Zeb.
So what he's
Yes,
saying is
you
there's going to be a
are.
Biddle show going on Saturday night itself.
There may be a lot of things going on at Self. So
Yeah, I would say that Self is going to be like the nighttime Self. It's a different conference because they actually have parties every night. So
You just need to have one at the Waffle House. That's all I'm saying.
yeah.
But you're just going to have to. I mean, how many invites does Zeb have right now? He's going to need like an entourage. Maybe that's what the rest of you guys are for.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be
I'm
my
just carrying his luggage
walking
like a
around
caddy.
me.
I don't think
There is
PZ's
luggage.
going to need any bodyguards. I think he's going to be the bodyguard.
Some big guy named Bubba to take him around
I want to know if
South Carolina.
Does Zeb get a muscle car? That's what I want to know.
I don't know.
we can't trust him to drive. He'd be on the wrong side of the road.
He would be.
It's like
He'd be running
2
into.
minutes from the airport to the hotel. It'd be 10 seconds for me. Like,
Any Winnebagos, he'd be crashing off the road. You know,
Hey, I'll bring my semi over. He can drive that.
I was gonna say he may not be able to drive anything smaller than a semi.
He's still be driving on the wrong
the
side of the
headlines
road.
in the news. There's some crazy Brit blowing all the caravans off the road here in the Carolinas.
Driving on the wrong side.
you obviously haven't looked at the UK car market recently, Dolphin. We have nothing but small cars over here. So, yeah, it's all
Well,
good.
fair enough. You guys do have a lot of small cars. There's a lot of narrow streets too, I must say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Zeb, you could steal a Kenworth anywhere around here and do the same thing. Big 18-wheeler.
If you figure out how to shift it.
Well,
Just don't bring it with you.
Dark Prince says the debate is not about free software. The debate is really about free speech.
Free speech only applies in certain parts of the world to begin with.
Well, that's another whole subject that we probably don't even need to get into,
right?
Because that'll end up bad.
Yeah, let's not open that can for political.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Linux.
Is that what this was about?
I think it was about Linux, Michael.
We're not switching to BSD?
You always got something. What do you got to say?
I'm not switching to BSD.
I'm not either. I tried.
Project Trident got a new release.
What is Trident? I don't even remember.
It's a BSD thing.
No wonder I don't remember.
Yeah, it's BSD.
It's like a Project Trident is like an interesting thing with TrueOS. They're doing like creating a foundation for other people to make versions of TrueOS that they're like their own.
And they got some weird desktop as well. I was watching Friendly Penguin's video. It's got a
it's
bit
called
of
Lumina.
Yeah.
Lumina. That's the one.
Lumina
Yeah.
desktop is
That's the one they make.
What was Scientific Linux?
I think they had multiple versions. They had a GNOME version and a Mate version.
Yeah, what was it based on?
It was based on nothing. It was independent. They took the code from RHEL a long time ago and then made their own.
Okay, what's the other one that came from RHEL then? That
CentOS.
CentOS.
Yeah,
Okay.
CentOS was also a community-driven distro.
It came out a couple days after Scientific Linux, but now Scientific Linux isn't putting forth new new.
Right, they're not making new versions because they don't think it's necessary for them to do so, because when they created it, CentOS didn't exist for like 4 days. Then they released a new version. They released their first version.
So they're basically doing what Ubuntu Studio is doing, is making the packages available to put on the other version.
Yeah, well, the main reason is because like the entire time that Red Hat didn't own CentOS, there was the competitive it made sense for them to keep their own version. But as soon as Red Hat bought CentOS, they know that they can now have a base that isn't Red Hat but still is compatible with Red Hat, and they could build on top of it. So like it kind of just makes sense that Scientific Linux would do that.
Well, CentOS is also the only version that I know of that has a fork out for the alpha, or not a fork, but a copy out for the alpha. And I've been trying to figure out how to get Linux on my alpha that I have sitting in the back room, because I'd love to use it as like a file server. I don't want to put VMS on it because I don't want to pay the damn license fee. But
RHEL still has versions for most of the hardware styles out there, don't they?
yeah, but RHEL is $1,000 a year. CentOS isn't.
Well, you guys have mentioned BSD earlier. I mean, that's not even for home users. Am I wrong?
It's tough. I've tried. I've tried to use it on some of my equipment, and it's nowhere near as mature as like the Linux kernel. And it's like trying to use Linux 15 years ago, trying to live in BSD. So.
You know, Derek, that's an absolutely like I couldn't have said it better, because there was a time when I felt like Linux distros and BSD distros were very close in terms of like the hardware they were supporting, the tools they were using. And for a while, you could have really used either one. It's a different system. They use ports, and it's not exactly the same. It's still an star NIX type system. But yeah, over the years, Linux is just really the uptake and the amount of people using it, the use cases for it, the hardware that it supports, it's really just overshadowed BSD.
Linux is VHS and BSD is Betamax.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I think the Linux kernel just got more people interested in putting stuff back to it with the entire, universe of devices that actually use the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the more, as we know from the Windows world, the more people that use it, the more stuff gets ported to it. So if you wanted to use a really horrible analogy, you could say, I'm not going to say another horrible analogy.
I think what the biggest thing is from start, the design philosophies were completely different. I mean, Linus said, hey, I'm working on this. Take a look at it, tell me what you think. Whereas Unix or AT&T, had that stranglehold on the full kernel for so many years, and the FreeBSD was really kind of built off of that. It wasn't built off of a community base.
Yeah, it is kind of a different mindset too with the licensing. I mean, the Linux kernel, GPL, the BSD license obviously doesn't have that copyleft mechanism. You can take something under the BSD license and make it closed source. So some of it has to do with different philosophy.
All right. Anybody want to bring up anything before we close out? We got about 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe. Michael, you're out. That means you don't get to bring up anything.
Ubuntu Touch.
I see it. Nice.
On your phone?
Mm-hmm.
What? Okay. So talk about it.
Is it a Nexus 5?
You're muted.
False audio.
No, I don't think he's muted, but
I was not muted. Rocco has banned me from talking, and I had to compensate for his hacking of me.
I just saw you turn your mic back on.
Fake news.
Oh yeah, you didn't really see that, Zeb. You didn't really see that. That didn't happen.
I'm not muted.
I mean, you didn't hear that audible click, right?
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Let's Southeast Linux Fest.
I'll be replaying that on YouTube.
So, what about your Ubuntu Touch?
It's on a 1+1 because Nexus 5 is a terrible phone. And the 1+1 is actually pretty powerful, even though it's pretty old. Like, it's like 5 years old, and it's still a very powerful piece of hardware. And the Ubuntu Touch is great and not. There's certain parts of it. Yeah, some parts I love about it, and some parts are very frustrating. But they're like, it's all polished things. Like, functionally, it all works great. The basic fundamentals of having a text messaging, having phone, and having all that stuff works totally great. It's just like weird little polishes here and there that if they were to fix them, it would be a much more smooth experience. But every now and then you kind of run into this random, doesn't need to have this problem kind of thing. Like, for some reason, I can't get my voicemail to stop sending me visual text messages that I can't use anyway. Then it just says, hey, you get a voicemail. It'll tell me I got a voicemail, and then it'll also send me a text message that's just gibberish random numbers and stuff. And I can't get it to stop. So there's like little bitty things like that are just annoying. But overall, it's actually a very usable thing. And I plan to do a 30 days challenge with Ubuntu Touch on the phone. I've currently been using it for 64 days, and it works quite good. Like overall, it can be, you can use it as a daily driver. Unless you have specific apps that you want to use, then there you go. There's a problem.
Like what specific apps might it not have?
Name one.
Okay, good.
You're enabling him, Rocco.
Well, Instagram
right,
is one. Instagram is one that some people would use for like marketing or whatever, and you can't have it. Like, there's this thing is a knockoff called Instagraph, and it works.
I'm sure it works very well.
Right, it works for sort of. There's certain features you can't do, like you're not allowed to upload video to Instagram without using their app, so you can't do that at all. But oddly enough, there is one thing that this phone can do that no other phone operating system can do, and that is use TweetDeck as an app. Because for some reason, I don't know why, but TweetDeck is the best app for using Twitter, and for some reason, no mobile device even remotely allows you to get these weird Twitter or the stupid Twitter app that they made for Android. Those are all terrible. And if I could just use TweetDeck, it'd be great because it's a column-based thing, so it works totally fine on the phone. You just go back and forth. So it's just like, that's cool that I can have that. But, there's other things that are not so good. But overall, I would say that if you're an enthusiast, it's totally possible.
Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp?
WhatsApp, no. Facebook Messenger, yes. Through a web app. Matrix, you can. Telegram, you can. The Matrix one is actually it's a custom app that's it's unique to Ubuntu Touch, and it's called Fluffy Chat.
So basically, you can draw the line at any Linux app. You could probably get on there, but
yeah, you can get Linux apps. You can actually get Android apps, but only a certain types of Android apps will work. So some of them will work, some of them won't. Anything that requires access to the hardware won't work. Like a camera app or whatever won't work. But
so
if you wanted
the useful stuff.
Yeah, well, no, you can get Bitwarden and stuff like that.
SuperTux
to do it. Probably not. Maybe
it works on my Android phone. I was just throwing it out there.
You might be able to do the regular one on you. They actually run Linux apps in a container if you wanted to. And that works pretty cool. But overall, I think it's great. And I just wish I wish more time to have more polish on it and have more people working on it because it has a great foundation and fundamentals. Just needs more time. But at the same time, if you think about it, it does have copy and paste that took Apple 7 years to do. So.
Yeah, earlier Martin was talking about the Pine stuff, and we were, he was talking about the phones in particular, and that's where I'm going to be interested to see on something like that how Ubuntu Touch and some of that ends up working out on the Pine phone.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to the Pine phone's pretty cool. I look forward to that because the specs on it are really good for only 150.
Yeah, we'll see how it's implemented. That's going to be the key.
It's probably going to have post-market OS or something.
Yep.
Because that's going to have that's a pretty cool project by itself because it has multiple iterations of DE and stuff. So you have Cloud Mobile on it, or you can have a bunch of other things. So that'd be cool. But the Librem 5 might ship
in 2025.
Maybe.
I have
I don't know.
2030.
Well, it's actually interesting because the UB Ports people mentioned that they don't even have dev kits for the Librem 5 yet.
Right? Why not? That's the problem.
People are asking if they were just because they haven't sent them to them. I guess supposedly the Librem 5s were all the dev kits were already spoken for or something. Which is what? Y'all made an announcement that you were working together and you still didn't send the dev kit. Okay. Every time I see the stuff that Librem's doing or Piers was doing, it's I like the idea of what you're doing, but there's these weird little sketchy things that just don't seem to work out.
I hate to be this way, but
the Librem 1 comes out.
Biggest.
When's it due?
Go ahead.
Anything.
Go ahead, Chicken.
Oh, I was going to say that I hate to be this way, but I think the biggest problem is that Purism isn't doing anything they say they're doing.
And when have they announced that it's coming out, the first phone?
They said at the end of the year, sometime.
At the end of the year. And I think it was someone tweeted somewhere or somebody put in the Telegram group somewhere that Martin Wimpress was asking the questions about, okay, so where's the form factor size? Where's the screen size? Where's the dimensions of what the case are going to be? Where's all the technical details? If there's got a phone coming out this year, they should have had some idea by now as to what it's going to look like, what it's going to be, the components are, what screen size. Absolutely nothing is coming out about what it's going to look like, and screen size, processor wise, memory wise, nothing.
Yeah. They even like it's weird because they've had multiple delays, and they said that, like, when they first announced it was January this year, and then it was like May or April, then now it's some point. So
yeah, Alan Pope on Twitter has actually an interesting thread with some charts about how their whole campaign has been going, with some interesting links. I'll go ahead and post them in the chat for you.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I have seen on their website some phone specs. There's 3 gigabytes of memory, I know, was one of them. I don't think they had camera specs yet. Hard drive specs, I'm not sure whether were there, but they did have some specs I did see.
The weird thing about the Librem, if you said that there's 3 gigs for the Librem, like, this is 5 years old and it has 3 gigs too.
That's right, yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, there was some criticism about people were saying, the size of the memory straight up, so... Yeah,
and for a $750 phone, if it hasn't got 8 gig, I want to know why.
Yeah, and I think the Pine phone set is going to have 2,
right? And that's only how much?
150.
Yeah.
It's like I want Purism to make a good product, and I want the Librem 5 to be good. It just doesn't sound like it will be.
Pine Phone's the one that make the Pine Book, right? The little arm.
Yes, the Pine 64 is named the company.
Okay.
They make the Pine 64 board and the Rock 64 and a bunch of stuff. And basically, the Pine Book and the Pine Phone are taking those system on a chip boards and putting them in like actual products. So it's a good marketing technique to get people to know about their boards.
I want one of those then.
Yeah, the Pine Book itself.
More viable too.
Yeah, the Pine Book is actually quite good. Like, when I first used it, I didn't like it, but once you get kind of used to it, or if you ever travel with it, it's awesome because it weighs basically nothing, and if you're just doing like travel browsing and like text documents and doing like things like that, it's totally great. Like it changed my mind completely when I did that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the Pro.
Yeah, the Pro looks cool.
All right.
Twice as much RAM, twice as much everything. Still got good, and potentially better because it's got aluminum body built. So,
I think they were saying earlier that ultimately that system on a chip is much more easily supported by the Linux kernel. So that's going to be interesting too.
Nice. Didn't know about that one. Nice.
All right, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for tonight. Everybody gets the last word, though. PZ.
Well, as usual, Rocco, thank you very much indeed for putting this on every week. I say it every week, but it really is true. It's the highlight of my week. Don't forget to catch myself, Michael, and Ryan and Noah on the Destination Linux podcast. We do try to keep it amusing and informative. And I'm really glad you're coming to Self. It's going to be a pleasure to meet you.
Agreed. Vash, last word, brother.
All right, thanks for the stream as always. And I can't believe I'm going to have to be the one to point this out as well. But I mean, come on, guys. Cubicle Mate. There. It's right there.
I love it. Do you have anything to respond on your last word there, Nate?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is the right color. Green, it's a nice color of green. And I don't know, Barb isn't here to argue with about the color, but I mean, Mate looks great, right?
Coming from the green guy, yeah.
Yeah, green's a great color. So thanks for having me. I've missed you the last several weeks. Good to see everybody, and Rocco, your nice clean shaven.
It had to go, man. It had to go.
Yeah. Yeah, you look like a child again. So
thanks. Cool. I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or not. And
no. What? So anyway, so thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's always good to be on. I was kind of busy tonight, in and out, but had a lot of family here, so I had to kind of entertain them a little bit. The house is a disaster. So I'll hopefully see you again next week, and I'll be testing out Ubuntu Studio.
Nice. All right, there's this guy in Peter's spot that I don't recognize, but he can have a last word too.
Well, all I know is a great weight was taken off my shoulders between shows.
Wait, if you've seen him in the Europe show and you see him now, he's completely different.
So,
all right.
Fun show. Thank you.
All right, Frank, Bill, multiple personality guy.
It's
Last
all
word.
right. Rocco and Zeb, thank you guys for doing this and hosting everything every week. It's really awesome. Thank everyone for the feedback. And like I said, if you want to send me other stuff, I will make sure that the team gets to see it. It's going to be a repeat of like the earlier one. I want to thank Popey for doing the spark that started this all. Obviously, thanks to Martin for all the incredible work that he has done. All of the dev team, and I want to shout out again to Victor, Vlad, and Luke, the whole QA team, and Alexandru, Etienne, gosh, I hope I said that right, and Leclerc. Thank you guys for everything you guys do and continue to do for Mate.
You're welcome.
Wow. Scott, last word.
Oh, always a great show, Rocco. Hope to participate a little more as soon as I get a good test rig. But I am downloading the Ubuntu Studio, and I'll give it a try in VM and see how it goes there.
Nice. Joe, last word.
Well, of course, thank you as always for the show this week. And I'm certainly still hoping to try to make it to South too. I would love to meet everybody in person. I still feel awful about missing the earlier show today because it sounds like it would have been a really good one. So I'll just have to watch the after one. But Michael, Rocco wants his beard back too. So
I'm still working on mine, Ron. Anyway, so.
But no, thank you very much for the friendships and the community and everything else. As Zeb always says, it's very true. You know, me missing last week and what happened in my family, it was really, I felt like there was, as odd as this may sound, every time I do miss a show here, whatever, there's a little bit of a guilty feeling, emptiness, whatever, because I'm so used to seeing these fabulous faces now and the conversations and everything. And you guys are just a great bunch of people and gals. And lastly, happy Mother's Day to any mothers that are watching out there or are part of this. So
Nice. Chris.
Okay, well, first of all, happy Mother's Day to all the ladies out there who looks like Barbara was the only one tonight and she's gone. So, but we all have mothers at some point in our lives. So that's about all I have to say right at the moment.
All right, Eric, last word.
Thanks for the stream. Thanks for everybody coming and sharing their thoughts and opinions and being the excellent virtual group that this is. And it's cliche at this point, but it really is a highlight of my week. I look forward to it quite a bit and can't wait to see you all again next week.
Nice. Paul, last word.
Yeah, thanks everybody for having me on. Yeah, I missed some of the last show. I'll have to go back and rewatch it. I was trying to get the drivers going for my new video card, but yeah, thanks everybody.
All right, Colin, last word.
Yeah, thanks, Rocco. It's always a pleasure to be on here, and looking forward to trying. What was it again?
Ubuntu
Studio. Yes, better remember that, so I remember to download it during the week.
Way to pay attention, Colin.
So, yep, it's always a pleasure. Thanks very much, Rocco, and missed you all last week too. So it's good to be here again.
Yeah. Was you not here?
No, I wasn't.
Wow. Wow. Dave, last word.
Thank you, Rocco, for this wonderful place. Mad respect to the Mate developers, the Ubuntu Mate developers, and all the developers of all the distros that show up here. Dolphin. Thank you. Just thank you all for allowing me in this space.
All right, Steve, number one. Last word.
Well, it's great to be back at my local lug meeting. So this is about as local of a lug as I can find. So thanks a lot, Rocco, for hosting this. And wonderful to be with all of you guys again. And so glad that you spent so much time with my favorite distro, Ubuntu Mate, and that you had such a great time with it. Also just wanted to say thank you to Distro2. I loved his video that he put out about the little thank you to open source and open source developers, and so many of the reasons that he listed are reasons why I wish I never ever had to boot into Windows. I do occasionally for work, but very, very thankful for all the open source software that I have the privilege of being able to use on a daily basis. So awesome.
Nice. Steve,
Thanks.
number 2.
Thanks for having 2 today to keep me company here in Vermont. Now I gotta wait till next week, but I'll catch you guys hopefully during the week. I'll be able to pop on.
Nice.
So keep an eye out.
Chicken.
Well, thank you guys for being here, and thank you, Rocco, for hosting. One of these days, I'll make the earlier show. I've gotten myself into trouble through the progression of this show. I've started like 5 different projects. I have no idea if I'll be able to finish. So, yay!
So how many Best Buys are you attacking now?
I'm gonna own stock and take over the company.
Derek, last word.
Well, today was great because I didn't know you were doing these early European editions because I haven't been home early on a Saturday in weeks. So I caught the last half of the earlier show, and then, of course, I caught the whole thing here this evening. So this was awesome. I got a double dose of Biddle. So
yeah.
I want to thank you for letting me hang out with you guys. And earlier we were talking about, how the community with Linux can be toxic, and that's certain venues. That's not here, though. This is the real Linux community. This right here.
Awesome.
There you go.
Dolphin, last word, brother.
Thanks, Rocco. Everybody going to self, enjoy self. And in case I don't see you, I'm going camping, so I won't be at self. So, I thought I was going to
In case
self.
I don't see you, which I won't.
I won't, because I'll be in the trees somewhere and it'll be awesome. But you guys have fun, and I'll be eating marshmallows over a campfire for a week or whatever. So, but at any rate, NMX 18.3 coming soon. And I don't know, maybe I'll do a YouTube video this week. We'll see.
Hey, Dolphin, on your trip, think hotspot.
Oh no. No. So you're missing the point of going to the woods.
Yeah, he's doing straight satellite download. Come on, be real.
Satellite download. Okay, so this is a long last word, but I usually take short ones. But at Philmont Scout Renovation, where I'm not going, but where my son has gone, there is a peak where it's close to the highway, where there is a sign on one side of the road that says something to the effect of, "Here's the phone number for the local pizza place." And because it's not only near to the road, it's also the only spot where your cell phone will work. So on the other side of the sign is the sign from the Scout Reservation that says, "If you buy a pizza, they're not taking the box. You're going to carry it out. And no, don't bury it. We'll know." Something to that effect.
Nice.
At any rate.
That's cool.
Michael, last word.
Check out Destination Linux tomorrow. We're going to be recording it live, ish, for patrons and everything. And tuxdigital.com, obviously. And I'm looking forward to meet Rocco and Zeb. I put Rocco in that list. And I'm not sure how many people are going to how many people in this conversation are going to Self?
Gonna try. Definitely try.
Maybe.
Okay. So I'm gonna be meeting. We've already got a lot of emails and comments that people are coming. So I'm looking forward to meeting everybody. And also, if you haven't tried it and you have a device that works, you should try out Ubuntu Touch. Although if you only have one device, probably not. But if you have another one, secondary, it's worth trying.
All right. There are a lot of thank yous that I could send out to everybody for everything that's been done, but this one's reserved for my mom. Happy Mother's Day, Mom.
Thank you, Mom.
All right.
Thank you, Rocco's mom.
Yeah, thank you, Mom.
Long live Linux.
Epstein's mother.